as comfortable a 5-star as I can remember throwing at something in
Go on five.
forever.
Love
Oh,
it.
easily for full five, like comfortably. If I still had an app, I might have been breaking the scale on that app as well, kind of thing, and go doing what I never did to raise this. I absolutely fucking loved this. I thought everything about it was just like delivered so well in every single like facet that you could possibly want. From the moment before the match started, like before they even touched, the crowd was absolutely on fire. It was as hot as fuck. It felt like, wow, these are two like massive stars in the eyes of that crowd who were going out there. And it is like, you talk dream match. It felt like to the crowd it was legitimate dream match stuff. Ospreay felt like a megastar with that crowd, like the reaction to him and everything like that. So just right from the off, the carrying you with it immediately, kind of thing, because the crowd is just like the crowd are there, so they've got you there as the TV audience watching it, like right there as well. Nothing feels flat about it. It had this air of like magnitude about it, kind of thing, that just felt outstanding. But like, you know, I just think about everything that was put together in this, from the counters to the transitions to the logic to the body parts to the story that they told start to end, the athleticism, the big spots, the level of fire on the comebacks and things like that, like the passion that was involved in there, the fact that it was like hard hitting as well, like the great selling, the finish I thought was brilliant and like delivered like, well, it was almost like you could just go out there and just write a big list of like everything that you could possibly want from like a modern wrestling match, and this just ticked every single box for me. Like I've watched it once, like whatever, an hour ago, 2 hours ago, kind of thing, and I just wanted to watch it again immediately the second it finished, because it just felt like flawless to me, and I couldn't wait to watch it again. Like, you know, you take all your criticisms, you think about the conversation that we just had sort of in the lead up to talking about this pay-per-view. This is why AEW needs to exist, because you get a match like this that happens that could not happen on this like level or scale in an American wrestling promotion if it didn't. Like, wow, I hope you feel the same.
The fact that, like, that's the thing I was saying, like, that was the thing that was keeping me up on the weekend show. It was like, but like, we're in a world where these two are in the same promotion, when Ospreay's in clearly the peak condition he'll ever be in his career, or at least peak kind of wrestling brain, I suppose. And Bryan is like, yeah, on the way out, but like, you know, maybe physically he's not quite, you know, where he was, but mentally he's there. It's almost the perfect storm, and you're right, it's happening in the perfect place. And I've seen that as a knock on it, like of, oh, you know, this would be better if it was Ospreay going for, you know, if this was like the WrestleMania main event and this was Ospreay knocking off heel Bryan for the world title. Okay. But like, the reason I think this works so well in itself is that it's in a place where it's just two of the best wrestlers in the world going out there to, in kayfabe, prove who's the best, and in non-kayfabe, to the rest of us, prove that they are the best by putting this match together. And that's a big thing that kind of kept going through my brain watching it. Was like, I can't even imagine like the scale of like the two of them sat backstage before this match putting this together, like trying to like craft the perfect wrestler like that. I'd watch that all. I know you would as well. I'd watch that all day, that conversation as they put this thing together, because like they clearly put together, and you know what Bryan's like with his wrestling brain, and they've put this together with so much thought for each other's stuff, to the point where it was, I'm with you, I'd say almost flawless. Was like one point where I think it doesn't knock any stars off of me, but you know when Ospreay hit the Stars Clash and they were kind of fumbling around on the floor over there, that was the only moment where I was like, I'm not sure they're both on the same page about what to do next. Outside of that, for the entire match, it was like the chemistry you see from Ospreay and Zack, where they just know where each other is at every moment. They know what the best thing to do is to feed for the opponent, to be in the right spot for the opponent in every moment. It felt like that with them too, and this is the first time they've had been in the ring together. I'm pretty sure, like as far as the two, and never mind just a singles match, like. And they had that level of chemistry and that level of forethought. And I suppose it goes to how good Bryan is, how good Ospreay is at this point. Obviously, it's a match Ospreay had been dreaming about his entire life. As you know, he talked about on the presser. He talked about going to the same All Star shows I will have in the mid 2000s and seeing Bryan as the American Dragon over here. And like from that day on, following him, and from that day on, just imagining what it would be like when he got in the ring with him. And you could see that when it got there, it was like there was no stone left untouched. It was perfect for what it is. Don't even want to get into rematches. We can talk about that in a few weeks. I'd love to see it though. But like for a perfect one-off, who's the best wrestler in the world kind of shootout match, I don't think there's any better. So yeah, I'm absolutely right there with you. There's, I'm sure you got plenty more detail on the individual bits that they pulled off in this match.
Ah, well, I mean, I just find it fascinating that you've immediately gone to like the Zach element, because that's something that I was just thinking while I was watching it. You know how much I love like the Ospreay Zach matches, the sort of like trilogy of matches they had the other year. I think I had all three of them in my top 10 when we did like went through the top 10 that year. And this just felt like it took everything that was good and great about those matches, but it was done on another level, and it was done with more. Like it was like they almost they built on it as well. And those were matches to me that just like, you know, they're right up there as good as stuff gets for my enjoyment. Like, just like, you know, I mentioned there as I was like running through things and just talking about like the logic and things that just built into certain things. So like, I just loved that idea up front that, you know, Danielson's trying to grapple with him, and Ospreay has got counters and he has got reversals and things like that. So it just meant that like then when Danielson when he was trying to take control again, like following that, that's when he started to like tie him up a bit and then just like throwing in a few like head strikes and things like that as well. So he wasn't just trying to grapple him. He was like, oh, okay, you can escape. Oh, I'm going to have to rough him up a bit here and things like that. Yeah. So right on the off, from the off for me, like 5 minutes into the match with that, I was just like, oh, I love that little kind of like just, you know, just that early wrinkle that they just put in there as you'd expect with that one. I loved that they set up early the idea that Ospreay's strikes as the bigger man were bigger strikes kind of thing, you know. And again, it felt like when they were trading, Ospreay's were worth two of one of Bryan's kind of thing as at that point as well. So that was something that they
massive thing he's improved on, isn't it? Like over years, like there's a million things you can say from his New Japan run that he's a different person since he went in, but that's like, that feels like a major obvious one, doesn't it? That adds so much to his style even.
And that's the frustrating thing, is because like, you know, you get people there and they almost like take the Will Ospreay headline and things like that. He's so well rounded. He can do absolutely everything, and he can do it like to a really high level, you know. So like even there with the strikes that were great from Ospreay, that looked stronger, but then for Bryan to get on top, he absolutely destroyed him with that kick to the stomach that just looked huge. It looked so like vicious, and then it was like the knees to the gut and then the kick to the liver like immediately after. So then it was just got into the territory of, well, I'm using a kick, not a strike here, and I'm attacking a very specific body part here that you know, going after. And then Ospreay's like selling of that at the moment at the time was just like perfect as well. So it all like just piecing it together just through the starting flow of this match, and then it just showcasing so many like different facets of them that they're like so good at. Just from the off, like I say, it was just like, it just felt another level. I was almost just like starting to watch it, and then they just had me. I was just like just sinking into the sofa with a big smile on my face, kind of thing. just like entertain me, kind of thing, you know. And it was just like, this is where this is where this is going. But the fact there, just like the heaviness of those strikes, the fact that, you know, Ospreay's selling of those at that time. I just, you know, I read that list at the start, but it just felt like it was just like tick, 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 tick kind of thing, just going through things that I want from wrestling.
And that's something I like about Ospreay. Again, it might not be a thing that everyone agrees with, but I like the way, like, so you mentioned the selling, like his arm, like, because it kind of comes and goes, but I don't think it's a negative in an Ospreay match, because it to me, within the scope of what wrestling is, or what I always say what an MMA fight is, it makes sense, because it's bothering him early in the match, and he's got that stupid wrestler head on where he's gonna fight through it essentially, because It's a bit like when we talked about the Tim Thatcher match from Mania Weekend, where like, you know, part of the reason, you know, it's taken a Bryan's going to want his elbow to be in pain because it's going to take away a weapon of his, and the Ospreay character is a fucking dummy, and he's going to try and fight through it and continue to use it, and that catches up with him, you know, as the match goes. Like, that's the... you hear people say it gets forgotten. I don't think it does. I think it gets remembered, and it's done in a way where I think, you know, Ospreay's been he's been in those locker rooms with Chaos. He's been in there with Ishii, because you see it in a lot of the other ways he sells things in matches where it's like okay, maybe on surface that looks like he's not selling it, but there'll be that little moment afterwards, that little moment after he hits the big move where like Ishii will do, he'll collapse, and that's when the sell happens. Like, he's picked up a lot of those, I think, good habits from those guys that like work, you know. That's another big thing, work in this American atmosphere, you know. We're talking about Ospreay, who's literally slotted right into American wrestling as like this big star, but he's slotted in as a wrestler as well. He hasn't had to change anything because he's taken everything he learned from Japan, including those little moments, and applying it here, you know, in a big match with a Bryan.
And that's it. And then I think that's where then, you know, when I like reference the fire kind of thing, and I suppose you'd say fighting spirits and things like that. If you're thinking about taking things from Japan as well, it's almost that like adrenaline rush of where like you then did get the opportunity to just like in short bursts kind of thing. Yes, I am damaged like in several places from where Bryan's been working here. But for this 1 minute, I need to fucking get a bit of motion in. I need to try and hit some big offense, like bang, bang, bang. Like it works. Bryan counters, he's dead again, kind of thing. Yeah. Entirely logical, like it makes it like just fit from like real fight or real sport or something like that. It's you know, it is that burst of adrenaline there. But then like you just talk about like other stuff, like, you know, obviously there's things there that you're like thinking about from a match structure point of view and a detail point of view, but just some of the spots that they just threw in here, like that fucking super tiger suplex from the top rope, like who the fuck is taking that kind of thing, especially with somebody with a neck and neck condition kind of, but you're just like, you're like, he's not going to hit that, he's not going to take it, and then it landed, you're like, fuck, like, yeah. and that's, you're like, you know, I'll always say this, you know, like hardened, grizzled wrestling fans, jaded wrestling fans, when somebody can pull off a spot that makes you think, like guttural, don't do it kind of thing, and then they do it, and you're like, oh, I can't believe, you know, like, get that kind of like response to you, because we've seen everything 100 million times, sort of thing. So for somebody to be able to work something in like that to get you feeling like that, or as from something as essentially simple as you know, a suplex from a top rope kind of thing, again, it just shows the masters at work, really.
I loved that big spot. I love was, you know, when Ospreay's hitting the combination of offense for him. It's that moment when you have to get Bryce out of the way so he could do like that springboard, and it was just picture perfect. Just that's the other thing about this. This is why I think it's high level and why it's 5 stars for me, with maybe a slight asterisk. I hate that argument of, well, you had the hesitation, so it can't be. It's like, well, I had the hesitation before I gave fucking Southland Sales 2 stars. I still think it's 2 stars. I just have to think about it, and I've been thinking about it over the last 24 hours. So I'll give you the final answer at the end. But like, it is that's the thing that we've got here. It's something where like that can be the only thing a good wrestling match can do. Great execution, great spots. There's a number of them, I'm sure, you know, we can list as well. But like, that's what this match had that takes it to the next level. It had that forethought, it had that story with a capital, all of those letters right the way through it, and it had like as good execution as you can get, you know, in any environment, in everything the two of them did.
And you just think, like, I mean, you shouldn't be surprised because of who they are and things like that. But like when you say that, the smoothness, the timing, the volume, the speed and volume that they're working at certain points, doing like real dangerous high level stuff, sort of thing, and it just literally just been to the absolute inch when it comes to like perfection. Nobody missing a step, everything been like right on time and things like that. It's incredible, really, especially when you get into those like late flurries. So there was 2 sort of like 2.99 kickouts there, where I think there was one where it was, going for the psycho knee twice in different ways, and then there was one that was like a counters with head kicks and a power bomb attempt that Danielson rolled through, and then there was the one after that where it was the German counter with like Ospreay sort of somersaulting out of it and then suddenly flying with like the fast elbow, Danielson ducking and landing the knee for like the 2.9 kick out. The speed and perfection and the diversity of offense that was happening in that time. It wasn't just like back forward. It was like the complexity of what was going on from like a transitional standpoint between those as well. Just to be hit so perfect. It honestly just work of art. You say like how good, I'm almost saying there like how good are they? Kind of, we know how good Bryan Danielson is. We know how good Will Ospreay is, but I think, as weird as it sounds, I think people undervalue how good Will Ospreay is. Like we're literally I think we'll sit down in 10 years, 15 years time, and you'll talk about Will Ospreay in this time period, this half a decade time period, the absolute, the ridiculous level of matches that he's had with so many different opponents, so many diverse opponents, where you come away from it just thinking like he's done it again. Like, how's he done it again? And there are elements that are the same, and people can like pick Ospreay spots and different spots and things like that, but he does always manage to just build in something that's a bit different. It's like there's a different counter, there's a different way that it's escaped, there's a different way it's hit from a different angle or something like that, or a different part of the ring or things like that when he's piecing stuff together, as well as the innovative stuff. Like, it takes some beating, doesn't it? Fucking hell.
It's going to look ridiculous on paper, isn't it? Because we're living through it, it's kind of hard to remove yourself from it. But when you look down the list of what he's done, these past few years, like, it's going to stand up to anything. I don't know, he's got his detractors who hate that, but it's the truth. We're living through it right now, and it's all there.
And it's that evolution, though, as well, because, like, again, you look at, think about, I don't know, go back to like the Ricochet matches, Best of Super Juniors and stuff like that at the time it was everywhere, it was trending, and people loved it, people hated it, kind of thing. But you think of like, it got obviously like highly rated for what it was for that style of match at the time. You just look at like the evolution of Will Ospreay, the wrestler there, going from that point to now, and everything that he's added to his arsenal, be it from like a grappling standpoint, from a like hard hitting standpoint, from a striking standpoint, from just his storytelling, his selling, and things like that. It's weird, but I almost just feel like he hasn't even met his ceiling yet, kind of thing. Like, because the thing that I've been most surprised about, that I've referenced on here, I think it's probably on the Patreon shows that I've done recently, is like, you get used to him being drawn into these amazing 25-minute, 30-minute epics, but then he's like busting out these 10, 12-minute like TV matches that are like an amazing TV matches as well, where he's just it's not just going out and playing the greatest hits, he's putting something together that lasts short, that is a short run match that's also like outstanding as well. Like, I feel like he's only going to get better because he's going to be working with different opponents that give him like more options to play with and more wrinkles that he can add to what he's doing. Like, I felt as high as a kite after this match, honestly.
I can't believe like it took this long to get him here. Like it never felt like, I don't know if I felt like Tony Khan wasn't a fan, but it wasn't obvious he was a big fan. In the same way it's obvious when Tony's a big fan of people. But of course he's perfect for this promotion. If anything, he's everything we want Omega to be in the company, that you see flashes of. Because Omega's got that same thing. You can have the great pay-per-view match, and fuck me, you can have one of the greatest. You might not be able to talk on your TV show, but he can give you the best 12-minute TV match you're gonna get. And we've saw examples of that over the last year or so. The Vikingo match just stands out, and a few others, but Ospreay's in that same spot. Will mentions in the chat, I compared Ospreay now to where Ricochet is, and a lot of that's time and place, but yeah, absolutely, Ospreay's in that breath with Omega and a few others at this point, and Ricochet is who he is, and a lot of the kind of ties to like kind of where we get to like the close of the match, where you said that early on, like it's time and place that matters too, and it's the crowd that matters too. Because, like, I grew up in the ROH era where, like, less than 1,000 of us in like watching an ROH show are going wild for Jamie Noble versus, let's say, Spanky, and it's one of the great matches ever. But you take those two wrestlers and put them on SmackDown, and they had that same match, especially in that era, it died a death, wouldn't it? Yeah. And we're not in that extreme era anymore. I don't think. I mean, if you just drop Bryan and Ospreay into WrestleMania, like, I'm sure it'd be great too. So the difference isn't as stark as it was in those days. But I think there's an element of that where it's like, that's the beauty of this, that this company is for the sickos like us, and the crowd that are there aren't, and people use this as a negative, aren't necessarily there to see the goodie, see the baddie. They're there, willing great match to be great, and we're along with it. And it just, for a match like this, that's the perfect setting. And I think it's not more emphasized if you want to get into it, into the finishing sequence of this. Like, I would laugh at the idea of it. I mentioned before, it's on the poster. It's Bryan and Ospreay, both running at each other, fucking Avengers Civil War style. I think that's the name of the film. Comic Geeks, let me know. He says, hosting a wrestling podcast. But, like, it's a silly spot. But for this environment, for this match, I mentioned it there, for this crowd, for what this match was, it was literally genius. It feels like it was probably Ospreay's idea, and Bryan went, it's a bit daft, that, and then went, I'm glad, actually, no. That's fucking perfect, that, isn't it? And obviously he added his own spin to it, with the finish, which we can get into. But like, just that moment, that anticipation, as you just saw, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It's like, the Gladys Street when, like, fucking corners coming in. That's all we can cheer for in the Gladys Street, and everyone rises. You know what I mean? It was like that. You could see it happening, and everyone was just willing this big stupid spot to happen, and it was played perfectly because they both went for their big move. Bryan for the knee, Ospreay, for the hidden blade. Ospreay wins it, and then, like you say, they added that little bit of, like, I would guess behind the scenes is Bryan's call, because you know what Bryan's like, he loves doing that thing where he's like kicking his leg like he's a dog getting his belly scratched, trying to make us all think that he's having some kind of fit. Like, a couple of people in our Discord fell for that, and I was like, come on lads, we've seen him do this. But it's Bryan in it, as well as, like, it's this perfect greatest match ever epic that we're getting. Bryan just wants that little bit of, like, realism, that little bit of doubt, that little bit of, oh fuck, as he actually broken his neck here when Ospreay picks him up and hits, like, a perfectly safe, by the way, Tiger Driver, and then the hidden blade, which they did between the ref, which I think they played well with the doctor on the outside as well. Get your thoughts on that. But it was like the best of both. It was the best of what was probably a dumb Ospreay idea, which worked out to be genius, and the best of what's a dumb Bryan idea, but kind of added to it too. And it was just like an all-time memorable, like, I don't know how many seconds that was. It was probably at most 30, but it felt like 10 minutes. It was just so perfectly, intricately laid out, and the perfect finish for what was, potentially a perfect match.
Oh, I mean, while I was watching the match, I just had that in the back of my mind, just thinking, please be a good finish, kind of thing. I didn't want all this.
There comes Don Callis. There comes Powerhouse Hobbs.
I was just thinking, don't put anything in here at the end to just detract from it. And if anything, the finish elevated it, like, even more for me. Like you say, just that moment of them both in the corner kind of thing, like, just like go kind of thing. It got to that point where it had built that didn't feel so stupid kind of thing. It almost felt logical with everything that they'd hit on each other and gone through to that point, that they were in that moment of, like, right, this is where we're going right now. Like, like the charge, and then obviously, like, the hidden blade landing first, that Tiger Driver landing. But again, I talk about timing and talk about positioning and things like that. Ospreay's timing of the walk away and the turn and everything like that he did to, like, then come back and hit the finish was just perfect with what was going on in the ring behind him and everything like that. Like, it all just felt perfectly logical that they didn't put that element of timing doubt in there for Ospreay to think, oh, is he hurt? Should I go for it? Kind of thing. It was like, I'm finishing the match kind of thing. Like, that's what I'm doing, and it just literal chef's kiss at the end of that one kind of thing. Like, with that finishing, and just like, even it was sort of one of those where you don't want to fucking rope WWE logic into it kind of thing, but that idea of them in the corner with each other, they'd have been talking at the hands there. There'd have been some kind of like, they'd have having to be putting some Amdram or theatre kind of element into it or something like that. The part of the dock and things like that been involved there. It would have been more in your face and stuff like that, like building up to the finish again. The fact that they managed to achieve this and it still felt subtle and realistic and perfectly timed. Again, it was just like, yes. Just great. And right down to after the pin, just Ospreay's whole manner in the attention to Bryan kind of thing, and them sort of like getting pushed away a bit by the referee and sort of celebrating but not kind of thing and stuff like. I think Ospreay played his post-match part perfectly there as well, and it did lead you to be. I think it added an extra layer again to the Ospreay character that we've seen him kind of like develop a bit more in AEW on the mic. He's over like fuck with the crowds. He talk about things added to his game. He can talk. He's even getting fucking catchphrases and stuff like that people are like shit like the crowds are like hot for and shouting for as well. So it's not just the in-ring development, it's that other side. And this kind of like development from a almost like a character performance standpoint here at those key points in the match. Brilliant again. Like,
and to the point, like it's a point I've made a few times, is, I mean, like Ospreay's in a heel stable, like, so I guess he's a heel in AEW. He's not, he's a face, he's a tweener, he's whatever he is. And I'm impatient. I would have just turned them first fucking appearance back and just got it over with, get the Callis family out the fucking way. But they clearly want to, tell that story slower, and this is a way to tell that story, isn't it? He's sympathetic to Bryan. But I know you haven't seen it, but probably took it a bit too far at the presser, because like it's the shoot press conference and he opens it with, I just feel so bad about what I did to Bryan, and everyone wants to be like, dude, what a fucking match. Even Tony Khan wants to be like, what a fucking match. And Ospreay's just like, I just feel so bad about what I did to Bryan. He's just overselling that. It maybe went a bit too much by that point, but I'm not counting that. Overall, I think it's a smart idea, and yeah, it made me feel some negative emotion a little bit, because it was like, but I think that's what it was designed to do. That's what Bryan's trying to get out of here with his silly sell at the end of the match, and clearly, people bought it as well. But yeah, and that's the other thing, you compare it to WWE. WWE want to have like two of their best wrestlers have a match like this and want to give them an out. You get a slip on a banana peel roll up. In this case, it's not an out, but Bryan's Achilles heel is his neck, and there's that. Ospreay goes over strong, but Bryan's got a story there to tell as to why he lost, and there's more to be mined there, I would guess, in future too. But yeah, fucking just unbelievable. I don't know if you got anything more on the match itself. I think I'm going to hover a 4.75 and I hate myself for it, Gareth.
So it's not quite as good as CCK against LAX. Oh, no.
I hope I never punched 5 into the app on there. That was I was talked out of that by the time it came. 4.89, 4.95, 4.97. I think I'm just a coward. Yeah. Maybe ask me in a week. Maybe I'll say 5 stars. I think I reserve the right to do it. But just unbelievable. Why is it 4.75? Not why it's not 5. Why is it going to be 8 when Dave plugs his rating in? Because that is what you've missed them to talking about it up as. I mean, can have the conversation. Brian Alvarez called it the best match on US soil ever. Brian. Meltzer talked it up as one of, if not the best American matches, or matches full stop. We'll see what he says at the end of the week, but most people have it up there, it seems, and it's very clearly the front runner for match of the year this year as well.
It would have to be. I mean, again, I've seen it once. I've seen it with the raw emotion of watching it. I'm talking about it live, like now, with the enthusiasm still, like, running through my brain, thinking about like watching it, So again, I will watch it several times, probably in the next fortnight. I can't see a world where I go less. I'm like, oh yeah, I was wrong. It was a 4.75 or something like that. I just can't see that happening. I think but that'll be then for me in my own head. Will be like, all right, well, where does this rank versus other things? And then that'll be the fun kind of like afterthought almost, is watching it a few times, thinking about other stuff that you've got up there, and then just seeing how it fits in. But I just can't see a world where I think something that it's got going for it is the fact that because it is almost essentially kind of like a match that's a little bit in a vacuum, and the build to it wasn't, the build to it was relatively light, it wasn't some massively long-winded story that led into this point. There wasn't like these key elements that led to this. It is almost a match that you can kind of like just sit down and watch, and the story is the match is bell to bell. So anybody in the world at any point in history could pick up this match and watch it, and they need to not have watched TV and just have what's told in front of them. And then I think that is another key strength of it, is that it's contained. It's contained within that 35 minutes. And that's all you need to know, and that's all you need to see, basically. And I think that's a massive strength.
That's where the culture war, unfortunately, you've missed out on. And, maybe we play along with it on the very podcast at times, but I tell you, it's not a story, because, the story is two of the best wrestlers went in there and had a match, and Will Ospreay won, and Bryan's neck cost him, and that's all a story. It's just a different type of story. And I get where it goes too extreme the other way is people like, oh, well, the people will say that and discount the people whose preferences you get built up, Cody Rhodes to this particular moment with Roman Reigns, and that to them adds to the match. It's just a different flavour of story, isn't it? It's a different way of doing it, and I wouldn't discount either. Both can be great in the right circumstances, can't they? There will be a great moment where potentially they're all in. Ospreay gets his big vital moment, and I would like them to build that up, but then there's a time for a match like this and a promotion like this for a match like this. So, both were. We'll ask, where does it compare to Omega Danielson? I'd say... See, I want to say better than that. Now I'm scared I gave that 5, so maybe that answers my question for me. Because I'm probably closer to 5 than 4.75. I think I'm talking myself into it with every breath. I'd say better. That's my instinct.
My instinct is better, but again, I haven't watched that for a while, so I think there where I talk about piece and, where does it sit almost. It's almost like a nice little exercise, is going away and saying, okay, well, let's watch that versus that kind of thing, and put them a bit closer together and a bit more like for like. That's a kind of a fun thing to do with things like this, is to just sort of like watch them and a bit of compare and contrast and things like that. But my gut feel is better, but I've got recency bias obviously with that.
We will need to move on to other stuff on the card, but I was going to say before we go, anything else on the match? Do you want to just throw in just call WWE shit for a couple of minutes so I can make this a clip? I'll just have it at the end. Like, the name of the clip will be it said WWE is shit, but we'll just spend the first 25 minutes talking about how great Ospreay and Bryan was. Anything more before we talk the other two big matches on the card, which had a job on their hands. Yeah.
No, it just shows you could have 30 minutes that is better than an entire WWE WrestleMania 2-night card. So
I got it. I don't even have to do it anymore. You're the one, we just load you up. You're going to be a hit on that YouTube, mate. The kids are going to be like, Dad, why are you coming up on recommendations? TikTok. We're going to take you worldwide.
Why have we got death threats painted outside our house from these fucking gay Uso truthers?
And I will say, we'll go back to the Gunther argument, but they are not my people. I'll always back you over them people, Garrett. Don't worry. I've got you back there.